Welcome to Alfred Kazin Notes, a place where literature, ideas, and the minds of great writers come alive. Let's explore the thoughts behind the words.
I'm so thrilled to be here for this one.
Same here, because today we are diving into some excerpts from Rebecca Yarros's Iron Flame, and this deep dive, it's really about the heavy burden of hidden history, right?
Oh, absolutely. The moral cost of power.
Exactly. We're going to look at this concept of the scribe as the true architect of reality, how institutions basically redact the truth just to maintain order.
Which is, terrifyingly relevant.
It really is. And we'll also get into the highly volatile intersection of magic and human emotion. Plus, that inevitable clash when personal love meets an uncompromising political ideology.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack.
For sure. And, if you, the listener, have ever worked in a place, maybe a corporate setting or some sprawling bureaucracy, where the official company line completely contradicted what you were seeing on the ground.
Oh, yeah. The classic institutional gaslighting.
Right, then you already intuitively understand exactly what is playing out in the Kingdom of Navarre in this book.
It's a massive paradigm shift to realize your entire reality has been curated by someone else. Yarros is, she's using these classic epic fantasy tropes, but she's using them to mirror the gritty realities of censorship.
Yeah, a society that decides absolute safety is worth any cost, even if that cost is, well, the truth.
Exactly.
So to understand why a secret political revolution is brewing in Navarre, we kind of have to look at who actually built this reality.
Which isn't who you'd think.
No.
Yeah.
You'd think it's the warriors. I mean, they have the physical might, right? They're bonded to these massive lethal dragons.
Right, they seem like the ones running the show.
But then the character Brennan, he completely shatters that assumption. He looks at this militaristic society and he says, and this is a chilling quote, he says, "In a world of dragon riders, griffin flyers, and dark wielders, it's the scribes who hold all the power."
Yeah, that quote is spot on. Brennan sees the actual hierarchy.
The warriors are basically just the muscle.
Just the muscle. The scribe quadrant. They control the flow of information. And if you control the information, you literally control the parameters of reality.
Because they issue the public announcements, right?
Yeah, they issue the announcements, they keep the records, they write the history books. They dictate what their citizens believe is actually possible in the world.
Which is wild because they've taken these world-ending threats, the venin, those dark wielders who literally drain the magic out of the earth, and the wyvern, and they've just downgraded them.
To fables.
To fables. They took an existential threat and turned it into spooky stories you tell kids at bedtime.
Which is, it's the ultimate form of population control.
How so?
Well, think about it. If a monster is just a myth, you don't prepare for it.
Oh, right. You don't build defenses.
Exactly. You don't ask your leaders why military resources are going to certain places, and you definitely don't question why the kingdom's borders are sealed shut.
Wow.
And we see the physical manifestation of this control in the archives. The text actually refers to this central library as the temple of a scribe's career.
Which, calling it a temple implies the information is sacred dogma, right?
Precisely. It's not just a library.
And we see this through Jacinia, a scribe cadet. Even for someone who is fully indoctrinated into their ranks, access is insanely throttled. She has to go through a literal 10-foot wide vault door.
Right. And the books behind that vault, they aren't even the ancient originals.
Oh, yeah, that part was crazy. She realizes a supposedly ancient text was actually hand-copied just 25 years ago.
Yeah, and, a text hand-copied from an original long after the printing press exists, that's a huge red flag.
Because they aren't just preserving history.
No, they're filtering it. When a central authority chooses manual transcription over mass reproduction, they're actively choosing which paragraphs survive and which ones just completely vanish.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Navarre is a sprawling kingdom, right? And it's surrounded by external pressures. Isn't a unified, curated history somewhat necessary just from a utilitarian standpoint?
Meaning to keep order.
Yeah. I mean, if the general public knew there were magic-sucking beings roaming around outside, society might just collapse in sheer panic.
Right, and that is always the perpetual justification for censorship. We are protecting the fragile public.
Right.
But you have to look at who actually benefits from that protection. Keeping society in the dark about the venom isn't really about stopping panic. It's about maintaining a total monopoly on power and resources.
Oh, I see. Because if the public knew the truth...
If they knew the venom were real and actively slaughtering people right outside the borders, they would demand that Navarre extend its magical protections. They demand the military actually do its job and fight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So by withholding that knowledge, the scribes weaponize ignorance. It keeps their own power completely undisturbed.
I hear that, but I mean, in a military society where riders are constantly flying around on patrol, word has to leak out. Soldiers talk. You can't just hide a few original manuscripts in a vault and keep a lid on an existential threat forever.
Well, you can if you control the literal vocabulary of your population and keep them isolated behind magical wards.
Wow, okay, so it's deeper than just hiding books.
Oh, it's an active daily campaign of suppression. Facing these terrifying realities requires, well, iron in the soul. And the institutions of Navarre have systematically weakened their citizens so they never develop that iron.
And that campaign of suppression has a massive physical and moral cost. It's not just some academic debate about censorship. Hiding the truth gets people killed.
Absolutely it does.
We see this so clearly in Professor de Vera's history class, right?
Mhm.
The cadets are learning about unification, which is when Navarre brought everyone under the safety of these huge magical wards.
Right, and unification is presented as this massive triumph. But the text forces us to look at the cultural price tag.
Which was huge.
Yeah, to join this magically protected gated community, whole regions like Tirender had to completely surrender their cultural identity.
The cadets just casually list off what got wiped out. Dead languages, like Tirish. Customs, libraries, entire histories, just gone in exchange for a spot behind the walls.
And erasing a language like Tirish does something incredibly insidious.
Because it's not just words, right?
Exactly. They deleted the localized ancestral knowledge of how magic operated before Navarre's wards were even built.
Oh, wow.
If a population doesn't have the vocabulary to read the ancient texts or to articulate a different way of living, they literally cannot challenge the regime's laws. Structural erasure guarantees compliance.
That is dark. And the cruelty really compounds when the borders are slammed shut after this unification. Outside those wards in places like the Poromish provinces, the Venin are actively destroying communities.
Just draining the life out of the earth and the people.
Yeah. And civilians are fleeing their homes, running to the Navarre borders, begging for help. And Navarre's response is to just lock the gates and look the other way.
They refuse to acknowledge the refugees because acknowledging them means acknowledging the Venin are real.
Right. So to justify living in perfect safety while the rest of the world burns, they have to rely on profound institutional gaslighting.
They convince their citizens that the people outside are either enemies or, that their suffering is just exaggerated.
Which brings us to that moment with the unapproved leaflets in class. These papers start circulating with the unfiltered truth about the Venin and the failing borders.
Yeah, and Markham, a senior scribe leader, intercepts them immediately.
But he doesn't even debate the facts on the paper.
Nope. He attacks the source. He tells the writers they should have used critical thinking to instantly recognize it as propaganda.
It's so manipulative.
He's using the aesthetic of intellectual rigor to enforce willful blindness. Navarre creates this hermetically sealed echo chamber, and they manipulate their elite soldiers into believing they're serving the greater good.
When in reality, they're just enforcers of a lie. The moral cost of absolute safety is the compromised integrity of everyone inside those walls.
Perfectly said.
But the narrative brilliantly introduces a force that Markham and his scribes cannot redact or schedule: the raw, volatile power of the individual.
Magic.
Yes. Magic in this universe does not care about Markham's carefully curated history books.
It really doesn't. And the mechanics of magic here are fascinating because they're entirely biological and emotional.
It's not just a tool you pick up and swing.
Right. It's not a sword.
Yeah.
The human body is a biological conduit for the power drawn from a dragon or the earth. And how that power flows is intrinsically tied to what the wielder is feeling.
Which makes it so dangerous. There's that pivotal scene where Felix is assessing Violet. He gives her this incredibly ominous warning about her partner, Zagan.
Oh, I love that quote.
He says, "You're powerful and he loves you," which is even worse. Because her magic is tied to her emotions, the sheer intensity of her attachment to Zayden makes her a danger to everyone.
And we see the literal manifestation of that volatility, right? When Violet experiences intense fear and anger, her raw emotion just completely bypasses her conscious mental filters.
Yeah, her biological conduit just opens way too wide.
Exactly. And a glowing orb, along with this string of uncontrolled lightning, just arcs across the room. The emotion driving the draw is too potent to regulate.
It's like magic is this live electrical wire powered by your own adrenaline. The more you care, the higher the voltage spikes. And if you can't regulate your nervous system, you just fry.
Which brings up burnout. the strict mathematical equilibrium of this universe.
Right, because magic does not give without a price.
Exactly. It demands absolute balance. The human body is just a mortal vessel with a strict physical capacity. So, if a wielder draws more power than their cells can process, usually to save someone they love, the magic incinerates them.
And the ultimate, most tragic example of this law is General Sorrengail, Violet's mother.
Yeah, that is a grueling moment in the narrative.
She pours her entire life force into a wardstone to raise the protective barriers and save her children. The text describes her surrendering to the fire, literally burning to death from the inside out.
Because she refused to stop channeling. And her sacrifice perfectly illustrates why the scribes are fundamentally terrified of the writers.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Scribes deal in controlled ink, right? Predictable statistics, calculated losses. But writers deal in limitless power fueled by unpredictable passion. Magic driven by a mother's desperate love cannot be contained by a geopolitical treaty.
But wait, if the law of magic demands this strict equilibrium where taking a fraction too much turns you to ash, tying it to human emotion seems fundamentally flawed. I mean, why wouldn't a system like that just self-destruct?
Well, rather than a design flaw, it acts as nature's ultimate check and balance.
Really? How so?
Think about what the Sage One of the Dark Wielders tells Violet.
Yeah.
He actually taunts her with this reality. He says, magic does like everything in balance. Take too much and she'll consume you for overstepping.
Right.
The physical limitations of the human body are literally the only things preventing that volatile emotional power from cracking the world in half.
But if that natural check requires people occasionally turning to ash just because they cared too much, that is a brutally unforgiving system.
It is brutal, but it forces relentless self-awareness on the wielder. The real tragedy of this universe is that noble emotions, like love, loyalty, the desire to protect, those are usually the catalysts that push a wielder past their limits.
Love makes the magic lethal.
Exactly.
And that psychological burnout brings us to the most complex collision in the narrative. The inherently selfish nature of romantic love slamming headfirst into the cold, utilitarian demands of a political revolution.
The dynamic between Violet and Xaden is the absolute crucible for this conflict.
Let's look at Xaden first.
Yeah, from a utilitarian perspective, as the leader of a hidden revolution, his moral imperative is to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people.
He's secretly forging weapons to save the Pormish refugees that Navarre just abandoned.
Right, so he has to operate with cold calculation. He has to be willing to sacrifice parts of his own life for the survival of the continent.
But then Violet enters the equation, and his utilitarian framework just completely shatters.
That goes right out the window.
His intensity regarding her safety contradicts his revolutionary goals. He tells her point blank, I will happily watch Erasia burn to the fucking ground again if it means you live.
And Erasia is his home. It's the seat of the rebellion, the hope for thousands of people. And he's willing to let it all turn to ash to keep one person breathing.
That exposes such a profound ideological crisis.
You really cannot be the selfless savior of a nation if you have an overriding deontological attachment to one individual. To the revolution, Violet is a severe vulnerability.
But to Xenon, she is the entire universe.
Yeah. It captures attention perfectly. The selflessness required by political warfare clashes with the innate selfishness of romantic love. Love demands you sacrifice the many to protect the one.
And Violet absorbs the weight of this contradiction. It creates this agonizing internal struggle for her. She loves him, but his role as a revolutionary means he has to compartmentalize.
He hides world-altering truths from her. The venom, the secret armies, the weapons forges.
And she makes this deeply mature, painful observation. She notes that it is entirely possible to love someone with your whole soul and still recognize that you cannot build a life with them if their mission makes it impossible to trust them.
It grounds all this epic fantasy in a deeply relatable human conflict. The constant paranoia of pillow talk when one partner is running a shadow rebellion. It's exhausting.
I can't even imagine.
Xaden literally has to evaluate the woman he loves as a potential classified intelligence leak. The emotional landscape of this story is just as treacherous as the physical one.
The dragons and the wyvern are lethal, sure, but human love is the unpredictable variable that threatens to bring the whole geopolitical system crashing down.
It really is.
Let's pull all these threads together. By digging into the archives of Navarre, we've uncovered that the true architects of a society aren't the soldiers. They are the scribes holding the pens.
By controlling the history and the language, they dictate the boundaries of reality itself.
And we've examined the steep moral and cultural cost of demanding absolute safety. When a society chooses willful ignorance, hiding behind magical walls while erasing the cultures of those they absorb, they corrupt their own foundational integrity.
Yeah. And we saw how that rigid institutional control violently intersects with the biological reality of magic. It's a universe that demands a brutal physical toll, where the intensity of human emotion, like a mother's fierce desire to protect, can literally incinerate the conduit.
Finally, we navigated that impossible tension between personal devotion and ideological duty. The narrative really proves that the most dangerous element in any grand revolution isn't the enemy army.
No, it is the inherently selfish nature of romance. It simply cannot coexist peacefully with the utilitarian demands of saving the world.
Exactly. So as you look at the structures around you this week, whether it is your industry, your local government, or even the media you consume, pay attention to who is writing the history. Who gets to decide what is an undeniable fact and what is just a fable?
That is a great takeaway.
We talked a lot today about living inside a fortress, feeling perfectly secure behind immense walls while ignoring the cries outside. And I want to leave you with a lingering thought to carry with you.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
If the monsters from the fables outside our walls turn out to be completely real, what if the true villains aren't those monsters at all? What if the true villains are the ones who built the walls and erased the history in the first place?